Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel arrived on an official visit, the first stop on his Caribbean tour that includes Barbados and Grenada. Moscow says it will not supply oil to G7 and the European Union following an announcement of Russian oil price cap. And in Iraq, Parliament approved the appointment of the last two ministers, finalizing the formation of the new government. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel arrived on Saturday in Saint Vincent and the Grenadines on an official visit, the first stop on his Caribbean tour that includes Barbados and Grenada. He was received by Prime Minister Rafa Gonsalves and Governor General Susan Dugan. Both dignitaries toured areas of Argyle International Airport built with Cuban assistance following an idea of a historic leader, Fidel Castro Ruz. This is the first time Díaz-Canel visits Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, a Caribbean nation made up of some 33 islands and keys. President Díaz-Canel's tour of Caribbean nations will include his participation, along with several ministers, in the 8th CARICOM Cuba Summit to be held in Barbados next week. Venezuela asserted its contribution to global energy balance with the signing of the contract between the state-owned oil company PDVSA and the U.S. company Chevron. The Minister of Petroleum, Tarek El Aissami, the President of Chevron in the country, Javier La Rosa, and the head of PDVSA, Abdul Chavez, met in Caracas. They signed contracts that allowed the U.S. oil company to continue operating and producing in Venezuela. El Aissami highlighted the importance of the agreement and the role the Caribbean country plays in a global energy balance equation.
We have expressed that Venezuela has always been open to foreign investment, and the oil, chemical and gas sector are proof of this, and we are also part of an irreplaceable variable in what we could call an equation for the world energy balance.
El Aissami stated the purpose of signing the contracts with Chevron is to continue with the productive activities in the energy sector in the country.
These contracts are aimed at continuing with the productive and development activities in this energy sector. These contracts are framed within our Constitution and the Venezuelan laws that govern the oil activity in the country.
The second day of the National Farmers Convention in Colombia, which brings together more than 2,500 farmers from different organizations from all over the country, moves forward with four main work themes. The event takes place in the facilities of the National University of Bogota since December 1st and is expected to end on December 4th. The convention seeks to analyze the situation of the countryside, farmer policies proposed by the current government, and the historical needs that have not been met. The convention is led by farmers' organizations such as the People's Congress and the National Agrarian Coordinator. After the Peruvian Congress approved to pass a third vacancy motion against President Castillo, the president affirmed he will complete his constitutional term in 2026. During an event in the city of Lima, the head of state rejected the actions of some political sectors to undermine his mandate. The president's announcement comes after the Congress voted in favor of accepting a request for impeachment against him on Thursday. In view of this, President Castillo emphasized he is confident that the Congress, as well as the social forces, will be on the side of governance when it is time to vote.
In view of some political sectors' attempt to break the constitutional order and the will of the people expressed in the polls, I ratify that nothing will prevent us from remaining at the command of the nation until the last day of our government, on July 28, 2026.
The Peruvian president also expressed his confidence in all democratic sectors within the Congress and in the social forces of the nation to sustain governability.
Neither anti-democratic attitudes nor petty and subordinated interests will pass. We are confident that democratic sectors of the Congress as well as the social forces of our country will be on the side of institutionality and governability.
Puerto Rican organizations condemned the implementation of an increase in power service rates. The Citizens Front for the Debt Audit, Queremosol, and the Coalition for Energy Thinking denounced that the fiscal agency imposed by Washington in Puerto Rico insists on a hike in the electricity bill as part of the agreement with creditors of the Electric Power Authority. Unlike what Governor Pedro Pierluisi claims, these are not unfounded allegations to create collective hysteria, but a real threat that could affect the quality of life of the Puerto Rican people. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. The Russian government announced that it will not supply oil to the G7 and the European Union after the announcement of the price cap on Russian fuel. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Moscow will not accept this limit and will soon report on how the method of work will be organized after the situation analysis is completed. For her part, the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, commenting on the decision of the international blocs, highlighted that the limit will be adjustable in order to respond to the current economic situation. G7 member countries agreed to limit the maximum price for a barrel of crude oil from Russia to $60 according to the G7. The measure is intended to encourage the flow of Russian oil at a discount to world markets. The price cap will take effect in all G7 jurisdictions, the European Union and Australia, and the corresponding regulations will include a time-limited exemption for transactions involving oil ship at ports before that date. In order to avoid a total blackout, the government of France announced that it will implement electricity cutbacks during the winter due to energetic crisis and nuclear production effects. Emmanuel Macron's government warned that the people must make changes in their electricity consumption habits in this winter month. From schools closed to half shifts, regions without mobile reception, paralyzed transportation means are some of the sectors that will be affected by this policy. In recent years, the French community's level of electricity consumption has been 69% dependent on nuclear energy with the disconnection of the last 26 years, so the dependence on neighboring countries to meet its electricity need is growing. In this context, the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, attempted to reassure caregivers by calling to avoid panic and accept the savings plan promoted by the government.
Don't panic, it is useless and it is not true, so the government is working, and rightfully so, to prepare for an extreme case, which is indeed the need to cut off electricity for a few hours during the day if we run out. It is normal that the government prepares for an extreme case because the last years have shown us that sometimes the unthinkable happens.
In the United Kingdom, recent studies reveal that constant price increases in recent months have set general inflation at the highest rate in 45 years. According to British media reports based on data published by a researcher from the Community Food Project in the town of Townsbridge, this is the highest figure since records began in 2005. The new census data suggests that 6 of the most deprived communities are in Wales, specifically in Cardiff, the capital, which, despite being described as a prosperous area, has been hit by poverty to the extent that there are reports of families resorting to pets' food. The cost of food rose another 12% this past November when compared to the same month last year, leaving wages unable to cover the most basic necessities. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu met his Belarusian counterpart Viktor Krenin in Minsk on Saturday. The defense chiefs of Russia and Belarus signed a protocol to a 1997 bilateral agreement on the joint provisions of regional security. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said his nation values its staunch alliance with Belarus amid mounting pressure from the West and appreciates Minsk's determination to resist the antagonistic political line of the United States and its partners. Shoigu added that Belarus is currently hosting combat readiness exercises involving Russian and Belarusian troops comprising a joint regional military group. China is actively optimizing and refining its COVID-19 response in cities across the country, adapting policies locally on nucleic acid screening, management of risk areas, public transportation and medical treatment to ensure people's livelihoods. From December 5th, passengers in Beijing will be allowed on buses and subways without negative nucleic acid test results within the previous 48 hours. Many districts in Guangzhou have also issued a number of optimized and adjusted measures to accelerate the resumption of work and production. In Chengdu, the capital of southwest China's Sichuan province, citizens can enter public places and take public transportation by showing their health code, taking body temperatures and scanning place codes. Entertainment venues and training institutions in the city that have had temporary controls lifted are now gradually returning to normal business in an orderly manner. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. Bolivia's government reported to have the forest fires in the Bolivian Yungas ecoregion under control, leaving at least 9,000 families affected. At a press conference, Eric Rada, head of Incidents Command of the Ministry of Defense, informed that the works carried out finally controlled and extinguished most of the fires. He also said that at least 10 outbreaks remain in the localities in the north of La Paz Department, where around 120 armed forces personnel are deployed. Likewise, the defense representative emphasized that mitigation and cooling efforts are currently underway in the fire zones. More than 2,000 experts wrapped up on Friday a week of negotiations on plastic pollution to address what even industry leaders in plastics say is a crisis. It was the first meeting of a United Nations committee set up to draft what is intended to be a landmark treaty to bring an end to plastic pollution globally. The United Nations Environment Program held the meeting in Punta del Este, Uruguay, from Monday through Friday. Delegates from more than 160 countries, plastic industry representatives, environmentalists, scientists, waste speakers, tribal leaders, and others affected by the pollution attended in person or virtually. If an agreement is eventually adopted, it would be the first legally binding global treaty to combat plastic pollution.
We must build an instrument that is broad enough and deep enough to cover the whole plastics problem, while also ensuring that all countries will participate. There's a lot to unpack here. We must eliminate and substitute problematic and unnecessary plastic items, ensure that plastic products are designed to be reusable, recyclable, compostable where possible, ensure that plastic products are circulated in practice, not just in theory and on paper, manage plastics that cannot be reused, and make sure that we talk about reduction on alternatives throughout the production chain.
On Saturday, the Iraqi parliament approved the appointment of 2 ministers, thus finalizing the formation of the new government. The Iraqi parliament voted by an absolute majority to appoint Mohammad Said Namidi as the new Minister of the Environment and Bankin Abdullah Rikani as Minister of Construction, Housing, Municipalities and Public Works. The country's new government began to take shape in mid-October with the election of President Abdul Latif Rashid and Prime Minister Mohamed al-Sudani. This is in a climate of political instability which, according to the President, came to an end after a vote of confidence in the cabinet proposed by the Prime Minister. Religious leaders of the Democratic Republic of the Congo's North Kivu province met in Goma on Saturday to discuss peace in the region after at least 50 people were killed in the country's east. The nation's military on Thursday accused M23 rebels of the death and of breaching a recently brokered ceasefire. DRC President Felix Tshisekedi declared on Friday 3 days of national mourning following the death. The M23 rose to prominence a decade ago when its fighters seized Goma, the largest city in DRC's east. After a peace agreement, many of M23's fighters were integrated into the national military. Then the group re-emerged last November, saying the government had failed to live up to its promises on the peace deal. By June, M23 had seized the strategic town of Bunagana near the border with Uganda. Hitler took control of two more major towns, Rutshuru and Kiwanja. In Goma, religious leaders called on everybody to play their role in promoting peace. The first match of the round of 16 of the FIFA World Cup Qatar 2022 was between Netherlands and United States. The European team defeated 3-1 the team led by Greg Berhalter and became the first team qualified to the quarterfinals. The Orange dominated the first half of the match in all aspects. They opened the scoring in the 10th minute after a great play that was finished by Memphis Depay on the penalty spot, assisted by Denzel Dumfries. At the end of the first half, a similar play was scored by the Dutch. The assistant was the same, but this time Daley Blind scored it 2-0. The second half was also controlled by the European team, but the United States, in need of goals, took more of the ball and Haji Wright scored 2-1 in the 78th minute. However, the player of the match, Denzel Dumfries, scored the third and definite goal to seal the quarterfinal berth for the team, coached by Luis Van Gaal. And as the hearts of millions of fans live the emotions of the Qatar 2022 World Cup, teleSUR joins this sporting event with From the Field, a show that brings news, analysis, reviews, and more to our audience. Don't miss it, our show airs at 1 p.m. local time in Caracas and 12 p.m. New York. Remember, From the Field, only on teleSUR. We have come to the end of this news brief. From you can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.